so we have Harish here. He's from our supportability team. So they go out and work with developers and not just developers, everybody, and help them make the most out of our platform. And they see all of the wild and crazy things that are happening out there. So good morning, Harish. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking, JP.
Great. So what have you what have you got for us today? I hear it. It sounds pretty interesting.
Thanks. Before starting, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And thanks, JP and Chris, for inviting me for a quick tidbit for the 4 to 5 show. And what I have today is a supportability issue, I would say, rather a peculiar issue with respect to the whole consent experience or the Azure Active Directory consent experience. So before I go into what exactly I want to go ahead and talk about, just a quick tidbit for our audience today. So, what's consent? So, consent is just a whole process in which a user is going to go ahead and grant authorization to access certain resources on his her behalf. So you go ahead and access or you go ahead and log into an application for the first time, it's going to go ahead and request certain permissions from you. So it's going to say that, hey, I'm going to go ahead and read your name. Hey, I'm going to go ahead and try to get an access token, or I'm going to go ahead and get a refresh token for offline access. So that's what you basically see in this particular screenshots, where you're going to go ahead and say that you're going to log into an app, and the app is going to go ahead and give you a consent screen that's going to go ahead and say you, hey, good that you've logged in, cool. Now I need to go ahead and have access to these certain permissions so that I can give you the proper experience. Now, what generally happens is that this is natively handled by the Microsoft Identity Platform. So when we're talking about going ahead and having an app integrating with Azure Active Directory, with any of the MSAL SDKs that we have published, this is going to be a native experience. But let's say, for example, we are not going ahead and depending on the existing MSAL SDKs, or let's say we're talking about some customizations, some links in that case. So one of the common scenarios that we have seen from a permission and consent standpoint is that developers have started using a particular experience. Prompt is equal to consent. So in the whole OAuth 2 or the OAuth authorization, or even let's take the hybrid identity flow, when user accesses the application and logs in, adding prompt is equal to consent in the URL, or let's say explicitly adding a parameter, prompt is equal to consent, is going to go ahead and trigger an end user experience where every single time a user accesses the application, he or she is going to go ahead and get a consent, even though they have already consented the permission again. So let me just quickly go ahead and show it at a quick demo. Let's take a dummy URL. So I've just built a simple normal application, and this is the first time that I'm going ahead and accessing this application here. So I'm going to go ahead and access this application, and I'm just going to go and quickly sign in. And this app is asking me that, hey, this is the first time that you're trying to access this application. Do you want to go ahead and allow me access or not? So this is how the default experience is. And let's say when I go ahead and click on accept, and then I access this app again, I will not be asked for this again unless the application is requesting for third or fourth, or is actually making a new permission request. That's the default experience. But let's say that I take an application that I've already consented as an example. So this is an application that's running on my local host, and I've signed into the browser already. And this is just going to go ahead and sign me in. And it did not ask me for any consent at all by default. Now, let's take the same application. So I have the same application, and all I have done is added a prompt saying prompt is equal to consent here. And I am logged into this application in one browser. I'm just going to use the same one. And Azure AD is going to go ahead and force me to sign in again and consent to this application again. So this is the experience that we are trying to go ahead and avoid here. natively, Azure AD handles consent for you. As developers, as a best practice, what we want from a supportability standpoint is avoid using prompt is equal to consent. That in itself is going to give you a default experience where, for one, Azure AD will handle the consent experience for you, and it will automatically go ahead and either get the permission from the user or go ahead and give the appropriate instructions to the end user stating that, hey, you are not an administrator. Please go ahead and contact your administrator to go ahead and get a permission or to go ahead and get a consent done. So that's the key tidbit that we want to go ahead and share. And the reason that we are highlighting it here is that nearly 10% of all issues or all feedback that we get with respect to the whole permission and consents vertical is with respect to the prompt is equal to consent. And that's the reason why we just wanted to take an opportunity, spend some just 5 or 10 minutes here and make sure that we talk about what's best. Let the platform handle the consent experience for you, and there is specific guidelines in terms of, let's say, how you want to handle incremental consent, but avoid prompt is equal to consent in 99% of scenarios. When in doubt, let the platform handle it. Let's not go ahead and use this unless there is an explicit need, which is an extreme corner case scenario, and which is why this particular feature exists. So with that, I think I am good with what we have for agenda or what I have for the day.
Okay, cool. So I've got two quick questions for you. So, what what case would I be in where I would want to manually ask for consent? Because this is different from admin consent, right? Like that's a totally separate prompt. So, why would I ever be in a position where I'd want to do that prompt? Is it like a troubleshooting thing, or like what sort of scenarios get me to the point of needing to add prompt equals consent?
The only scenarios where the whole prompt is equal to consent is going to come into picture is, let's say, if you have a specific requirement that says that, hey, every time you go ahead and access the application, before you go ahead and get or read data, there's going to be a regulation or there's going to be a restriction that says that you need to go ahead and show a consent to the end user. So that's one of the extreme corner case scenarios that we have seen where people have tried to use prompt is equal to consent and get an approval kind of a mechanism inbuilt to the login experience. So apart from that, the only other use case where we have seen is scenarios where we are trying to go ahead and think about permissions that has been removed from the service principals, or let's say new permissions that has been added, and the application does not want to go ahead and handle incremental consent and actually wanted to consent again. So that's another corner case that we have actually seen prompt is equal to consent. Apart from these, there is no legitimate reason why we should handle it. One, our platform handles it natively, and number two, if you use our MSAL SDKs, be it JavaScript or be it Identity Web, we have native support to go ahead and perform incremental authorization either using a redirect or using a pop-up, which we entirely handle, and that eliminates the need for using prompt is equal to consent.
Okay, cool. Okay, then we have one question from Ultramark in the chat, and and they ask if the same guidance is valid for prompt select account. And I'm wondering, are you seeing what kind of issues are you seeing? Are you seeing issues with select account in the prompt?
In terms of select account natively, we're not actually seeing a lot of issues per se. Let's say prompt is equal to consent is causing problems because of one particular aspect. We now recommend large enterprises, to disable end admin or end user consent and have consent only to administrators. So when such things happen, or when an enterprise goes ahead and enables such a feature, having this in your application renders your application ineffective. So there was a bank, a large bank, and an analyst firm. We're talking about 100,000 users plus, where they were using a plugin in Outlook, and that particular application was using this particular prompt. And when the enterprises went ahead and enabled those feature on recommendation by Microsoft identity experts, that actually broke their scheduling application, that actually broke their internal application. So that is going to be the impact of using this, and hence we see a lot of issues regarding to that. select account is something that, let's say, doesn't break anything, or we have not seen patterns, at least for now, in terms of identifying prompt is equal to select account causing issues that have the ability to cause impact at a later point of time. But yes, there are multiple feedbacks specific to prompt is equal to select account, and we would not say that we recommend to you to go ahead and use prompt is equal to select account or not go ahead and use select account. I would say we would need to go ahead and take it on a case by case basis for that.
Okay, cool. And then, so one last question on the when
Yep.
I've made it so that no users can consent. So when I've set it to
Mhm.
admin only for all consent, if I do
Mhm.
prompt equals consent
Mhm.
and I've already consented, can I then not consent as a user again?
You cannot. It ultimately breaks the application. So you're going to go ahead and get an error message, and it's just going to go ahead and stop you from accessing the app. That's exactly what happened, and that's why we don't want anyone to use this.
I see. Okay. Now that makes sense. Okay. So yeah, I can see how that would break a lot of things. I mean, as a user of the Microsoft directory, which doesn't let me do nearly anything, I can certainly see how that would be a huge problem, especially if my org is switched over to not allowing
Absolutely.
user consent at all. So, well, awesome.
Yep.
Well, thanks for coming, Harish. How can people get help? Like, how can they get to your team? What's the best way to get connected or to get help if they need it?
So the best way to get connected to our team is through Stack Overflow, wherein any Stack Overflow question that you tag with Azure Active Directory or MSAL or EDAL or even Microsoft Graph for that standpoint directly reaches my team, and we would be able to go ahead and help you out on that, and then see how it goes from there.
Okay, awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much for coming. You're going to be back in just, or you or someone from your team's going to be back in just a few weeks, and
Definitely.
so thanks for spending time. And this was great too because I hadn't thought about. I didn't realize it was such a big issue. So I'm glad you were here to tell us about it. So thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks
Awesome.
for inviting me. Yeah. Bye.
Cool. All right.
Awesome.
So we're gonna get Mr. Yan hooked up here, so we
Yes.
can get going with
He's
him.
He's been
Been
patiently waiting in the
patiently, been
background.
patiently waiting. Yeah. Here, his head's a little low on the screen. I think we're gonna have to fix that. So it's okay. It's not a you problem. It's a me problem. So. So give us just a sec. We're gonna get Yan all squared away here, and I see there's a question from H3 Tech. The user upgrades from basic to premium, which means access to more resources to force the user to log out and then back in to see premium features as a point of friction. Does this handle that scenario? It would help that scenario in the sense that you're going to send a user back to go re-sign in, and if they are now a member of a net new role or something similar, that because a new token gets issued, that would be there. So that would be helpful in that case, but prompt equals consent would not necessarily be the one. Maybe you could use select account, which would force a user to choose one of their accounts. They'd get a reissue. Or you could just send them back entirely without any of those, and then it would be silent. So they'd go back, they'd get new tokens issued, however, and you'd be able to process those and see any role changes or group changes. That have happened since their last login. So I hope that helps. If it doesn't, let me know. We'll get it sorted. Okay, so Yan, good to see you again. I'm glad you're back.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So originally, we were looking at the upcoming schedule, and we saw that you were coming back, which we were super excited about. And we saw single sign out. And I thought,
Yep.
we're not on TikTok. How on earth are we going to talk about single sign out for longer than 30 seconds? So I'm super excited to figure out what we're going to talk about in regards to single sign out. So first, how have you been since you were last on the show? How have things been going?
Things been going quite good. I've been trying to keep myself busy with work, especially during the quarantine. So, a lot of time for petty projects. And other than that, I hope that everyone's, and including you guys, are all good as well, healthy, and staying safe.
Surviving, you know.
Surviving. Exactly.
I got vertical. I got out of bed today, so that was a good start. So I'll take what I can get.
That's good to hear.
So
it's a good start.
And do you have any screen that you want to share with us today?
Yeah. So I'll be sharing my screen, and let me get it up. Okay.
Okay. Clickers down. Pencils down, everybody.
Okay.
Oh no, Bolt. Oh.
Oh, you muted.
Perfect.
You got muted. That will.
You can still hear us, but nobody else can.
Oh.
So
So is yours.
we've added a bunch of we've added some muting so that people can people can mute us. They can't mute you yet, but they can mute us.
All right.
So we are now. Clearly my OBS is kind of laggy today. I don't know what's going on. So I guess my mute and unmute got delayed, which kind of reduced their efficacy. So, boy. Anyway, sorry, Ann.
No
Back
worries.
to what you were talking about. And zoom in a bit, please, if you don't mind.
Right. On the Visual Studio?
Yes, please.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So we're back? Or not yet?
Yeah, we're back.
We're back.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
We're back. We're ready.
So, I'll start off with answering the first question. How the hell are we going to talk about single sign-on for more than 30 seconds? I think that's a very good question to start with. Last time we managed to do something similar with Easio. This time, I don't think it will be as long, and because single sign-out is quite a simple topic, but there's some very nice features which not many people know about. So first of all, to introduce single sign-out. Single sign-on, single sign-in is that everyone should be aware of it, having one account being able to sign into many services. Now, the issue comes when you hit sign out from the application, and that usually results in two actions. You get signed out from the application directly. It usually means that it deletes the identity cookies in the app. And second, it redirects you to Azure Active Directory or to the identity provider to actually cancel or revoke your authenticated session, which is going to result that when you come to the application again or come to another application and you hit sign in, you will need to enter your credentials. Or eventually, if you are using if you have your work account connected to Windows, you will be signed in automatically without credentials. Now, the question is, what happens to all the other applications that you have signed in during your session? That's a very big question mark, because there is literally no standard implementation. There are standards, but not many applications are implementing them on a standard daily basis. So what you are going to end up with is usually being signed in to those applications continuously, even while already being signed out from Azure AD. So one of those examples, which I want to give you, is I have an application that I just started. I'll just open my new browser window and navigate to it. And for this demo, I created a sample user that we can play with. It has MFA turned off, so we will not get many sign-in prompts because they would be very annoying when demoing single sign-out, obviously. So what I'm going to do here is I'll just sign in. Probably everybody knows this screen, all right? And I've just signed into a sample Razor Pages app, I believe, or MVC app.
So the cases, so that was, I guess it was something I hadn't thought about was, so I've got like, Outlook, like OWA, and maybe like 2 or 3 other apps, like business apps or something, and I click sign out. So I'm signed out of, say, Outlook, right, or OWA.
Yep.
Which signs me out of Azure AD, but I'm still signed into all of our corporate apps that are still using Azure AD, and like you say Teams or something, right? Like Teams in the browser. I'm still signed into all those, even though I've actually signed out. That's what you're telling us, right?
Exactly. In most cases, those applications don't revoke the session or they don't get notified. They're not written to accept the notification of the session being ended by the user. So I'll just switch to the privacy page. It's an authenticated page. I believe it shouldn't make any calls anywhere. Hopefully, let's just check it to make sure.
Can you zoom in the code for, like, can you do 150% on the code?
Okay, I'll do 150. Okay, it should be 150 now.
That's nice.
Is it better?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
So we've got the privacy, and you can see it's not doing anything special. All right. So let me get back to this browser. I'll also open the Azure Portal. So we have the Azure Portal. I can open www.office and to the Azure Portal, and I be in. If I go to Office 365, I should be signed in as well.
We're losing him.
All right, I'm in the portal. And now I'm in the office as well, so I'm authenticated. Now, I can choose any service. I'll just hit sign out, and you'll see what happens. So I have just signed out of Azure. Now I'm waiting until it signs me out, so hopefully it will be real quick. All right, signed out of all the apps. And now if you check the Office portal, I can still sort of interact with it. I can see the apps. Even though when I hit refresh, it has noticed something. Hey, something happened. You have to sign in again. So, Office, all of the Office apps, including SharePoint, OWA, or Outlook Web App, respect the session cancellation. So whenever a user cancels a session or ends it, they will sign you out and they will somehow react to it. Now, if we go to this application, we hit refresh, you'll be able to see that I'm still signed in. I'm still this user. I will have the same claims in the application. So we just put a tiny breakpoint here, and we hit refresh. Okay, I will end up here, and you will be able to see the HTTP context. You'll be able to see, let me see if I can zoom this in a little bit.
I think Windows Plus does magnifier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just did it. Did it zoom, or did it zoom just for me?
Yep. No,
okay, perfect.
It's zoomed, yep.
Okay, so I should have the user here, and you see I have the claims principal. I'm signed in with my account. I have all the claims that came from the token, and the user can still operate the application just like if nothing happened, because they're still signed in and the application is not aware of any change being done here. That the session has ended. Now, this potentially opens up a couple of security issues. The first of the issue is that you're using a shared computer. Nowadays, it maybe is slightly rare, but let's imagine you're in some hotel, and you sign into a bunch of line of business apps and you hit sign out and you expect yourself to be signed out from everywhere, which is not true. And if you're not using some temporary profile, the next person coming after you can simply just open the page from history and can obviously use your open session. So this is one of the potential risks. Another risk, which I have experienced myself, is sometimes I use multiple accounts. So for some reasons, my sessions mixed, and it was when redeeming Office 365 keys or Microsoft 365 keys. And what happened to me is I managed to redeem quite an expensive license code to a completely different tenant. So
Oh, no.
it actually resulted in about a 2-week discussion with support, getting it canceled and and the license moved into the proper tenant, because there was no visual information on the side that I was signed in with a different account than the one I expected to be signed in with. So it was very, very, very confusing. So this is one of the reasons that I would suggest implementing single sign out as well. So now when we go to how do we do single sign-out? Generally, there are 3 ways in the OpenID Connect specification to handle the single sign-out. I will start with the one which is not implemented in Azure AD, and that is called the back channel. I'll just open the RFC quickly here. Really close Visual Studio, so my computer will be faster. And now it's just okay. And basically, the back channel logout specifies that when a user signs out, the identity provider, so the server, can go ahead and post information to the registered service saying, hey, this session is no longer valid. So what it's going to do, and you were talking about the tokens and the claims that are in the tokens. So it's going to create a sort of a JWT token. It's going to create a JWT token which contains information that you should sign out this user. And the complication with doing the backchannel sign out is that you need to have centralized session management, because obviously you need to invalidate the user cookies. And it's not really going to work with, for example, single page applications and apps like that. So it's quite a specific use case, which also requires the application to have a specific implementation. For instance, the session management of cookies and things like that. This is something that is not currently supported by Azure Active Directory, and I don't really see in the world of nowadays, when we have single page apps, where this could be useful in many various cases, because when you have a single page app, the app actually needs the user session, like it needs to open in the user's browser to actually sign you out. So this is the back channel. The second way to do single sign-out, this is a more interesting one, is called the front channel single sign-out. And the front channel is actually integrated into every sign-out page in Azure AD. So when we were in the browser and you saw me sign out from Azure Portal, it was saying, hang on a minute, or wait a second, we are doing something. So what was happening behind the scenes was that the identity provider redirected me to a page. It gave it the list of applications that I'm currently signed into, and via AJAX and cross-site request, it basically sent a request to the server saying, hey, you are about to sign out, and it also appended the ID of the user. So I'll just demonstrate this real quick. So once again, I'm going to sign into the Azure Portal, for instance. I will run my application again. So this one. And in order for this to work out and to demonstrate this, you need to, Azure AD is going to, oh, this is an interesting dialogue.
It's like an IE dialogue.
Yeah, it looks like Internet Explorer. What's that coming from? Wow.
The tool is currently busy and not responding to messages. That should be my team status.
It should be.
Okay.
You can continue to wait or terminate the tool now.
I don't want to terminate anything. My computer is it's running quite weird right now.
Is it OBS Ninja taking all the CPU available?
Yeah, it's the browser. Yeah. It's the browser. All right. So I will just close this. I will not terminate anything. Hopefully everything will be fine. So okay, I'm signed into Azure Portal. I'll now sign into my app again. Just go here. All right, I'll just make sure that I get a fresh session of Azure AD, because Azure AD is only going to notify the sites that you have signed in with the current session. So, and what I did in order to get this working, I took a different browser. This one. So I created an application in Azure AD in order to run this, and I suppose we all know how the registration works.
Don't make assumptions, my friend.
All right.
Please zoom in and walk us through that one if you don't mind.
Okay, perfect. No problem. So what I have done is I have created the application. I have created a service principal, so I have registered the application in Azure AD. Thanks to it, I got the client ID, client secret into my code. And usually when you set up an application, you just put in the redirect URIs. This is where you want to go after you sign in. This is actually the protection so that Azure AD only redirects you to your domain or the address of where your application is running. Now, there is also another option, and that's called front channel logout URL. Previously, this was just called logout URL, and this sort of brought a lot of confusion because nobody knew whether it was front channel, whether it was back channel, what it was for. So now it's very clear. It's a front channel logout URL, so it's using the front channel. What I did was I did set up a webhook, a site, which is capturing the webhook request. So it's going to show us the exact request that came to the application. I just need to run one more application, which
there's
is
a
actually...
website. There's a website that you can configure to capture a webhook. Oh, that's
it's perfect for testing webhooks. So
yes,
it's this application. I have actually just spoiled the request now, but there are actually many sites like these where you can just receive webhooks and look at the content. You can also sort of mock the response. So if you want to try and give it 503 or some specific error code, you can do it over here. And you can also set your body, headers, everything for that you would be used to. So it's a very nice tool for capturing a webhook request. I'll just zoom it in again. And when we sign out from the app, and I'll just launch my Visual Studio. I'll show it so we get a fresh request over here. So I'll just launch this one more.
So you're going to sign out and then capture the trigger?
Yes.
The webhook
exactly.
In the webhook site, right? Cool.
Exactly. And I'm also going to show it to you in the browser once it loads. So I'll open the app that I have running here.
Dying with anticipation.
I know. I'm like on needles, wondering what's going to happen.
I hope it's going to load. Firstly,
maybe you should make a requirement that if you're coming to stream, you need to have a 64 gigabyte RAM.
Let's just send machines to people. Like, all right, thanks for coming. Here's a new machine.
A whole kit. We'll send you the kit with
There's-
the cameras and the mics and everything.
There's got to
So
be
do you
some
have-
budget for that somewhere, right?
Yeah, true.
Do you have like some experience with the OBS Ninja taking a lot of CPU, or is it just like
you're not the first one to mention that.
okay, okay?
Yeah, so
All right. So this is again just an ASP.NET application. I have single signed into it, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign out again from the Azure Portal. I will open the developer tools so we can see what's going behind the scenes. In the developer tools, I'm going to capture the network, so we will see all the requests. I have set to preserve the log, so we will see the requests as we go through the sites. I'll just leave it here, so you'll hopefully be able to see some of the requests coming or going, and then we'll also review that. So, and maybe okay, that would be too cluttered. So now I'm going to hit sign out. And what's going to happen is that now it's signing me out. And what it already did here is, and let me zoom in again, it actually, okay, now, it called, let me put it on full screen. It called the webhook site. So here is the, I'll just open it in the large screen. It did the call here to the webhook site. And what it also provided me is the session ID. So you can verify that it's not just someone, trying to do some cross-site request forgery, because via this session ID, you can actually verify that this request is meant for the specific user. Now, to explain the session ID and what it's for, the session ID is the unique identifier of the current user session. So technically, this ID should be the same across multiple applications in single session. So you get this alongside when you authenticate. Your application is going to get the session ID, which you then use, and you can use it to do the to verify that the request is actually meant for this specific user and for the session that's currently ongoing in the browser. And I will get to the session ID a little bit later with the last single sign-out method that we are going to talk about. But the point is, we got the request. I can also show you that the request arrived into the webhook site. You see 6:41, so 2 minutes ago, we got the request. And now I would sign out from the application. Now the main point here is when you receive this request on your endpoint, you don't do single sign out anymore. What you just do is you just call your cookie middleware or wherever you persistently store the session information, and you should clear the cookies. So just remove the user session, and that should be all for you. You shouldn't redirect the user to the identity provider for sign out or anything else. This is just like the session has ended, and it's done. So this is handled. This can be handled in multiple ways. First, you can implement this in your own controller, which can take some time and some resources. But ASP.NET Core OpenID Connect middleware actually takes care of this. So if we go into the implementation of the ASP.NET Core middleware, they have already done all of this for you. So when you receive, I'll just zoom in again.
Yes, please.
When you receive the request, and by default, is this big enough? Or
maybe one or two more clicks just in case, or maybe
Okay.
we just haven't
We're
seen
old
it change yet.
and we need glasses.
Okay, I'm at 200. Okay, now it got a little bit bigger.
Oh, there it goes. Yeah, it is. I
Okay.
guess it is pretty far behind.
Yeah, it is. So there is an implementation of what the middleware should react to, and it's already done in the middleware. So when you receive this sign out request, Microsoft or the ASP.NET Core middleware is actually doing all the validation for you already. So it's validating the session ID, it's validating the request, and if it's valid, it's just going to clear the cookies and sign the user out from the application. So this is well taken care of by the middleware of ASP.NET Core. The only thing that's probably stopping or keeping you from using this is the need to know that you can actually configure this, because there is a well-known defined path for single sign-in. So whenever you're setting up your application when I was back in the Azure Portal, you usually put the redirect URI for ASP.NET Core as a sign-in -OIDC. This is what you use for your single sign-out redirect URL. Now, in the middleware, there is the same URL. It's just sign-out -OIDC, and that's used for the single sign-out. So if you want to enable the front channel sign-out for your application right now, and you're using the cookie authentication with Microsoft Identity Web or just the OpenID Connect middleware, you can just go ahead out of the box and just put the URL here and replace the sign-in your OIDC with sign-out OIDC, and you're good to go for the single sign-out session. And you have all of this set up for you.
Nice.
And because that sort of, please wait while we sign you out, because that page is the page that's going to make this call. Localhost would be fine, right? Because I'm running locally. So I should be able to see that work.
Exactly.
So I've got a question.
Sure.
That session ID, how do I know what it is? Do I get it in an initial sign-in? And it gets captured somewhere? So
the session ID arrives in the initial request. When you authenticate, you get the session ID. I also believe that it's part of the identity token, and I will get to pulling the session ID from the signed-in information in the next demo of the session management single sign-out. But you receive it from Azure AD.
There's a question from AC Tech. So when you get escorted out of all the sessions, I signed out of all the sessions, such as a separate tab focusing on Azure Portal, will you get re-prompted there when you click on anything on the page? Is that how it happens? So let's say I'm in the Azure Portal and I want to navigate to, say, Azure Functions. Will you get re-prompted for authentication?
In Azure Portal, I believe yes. Azure Portal actually, I believe the Azure Portal implements the session management, so the third way to handle single sign-out. So it will proactively check with Azure AD to actually see if your session has changed, and if it did, it will prompt you to sign in again.
Okay, so essentially, all of the different. So say we've got 5 tabs open, right? And it's all up to the developer as to how they choose to implement Logout. Because I'm thinking of like a traditional web app, not like a front end, not like a front end talking to a back end. In a traditional web app, I'm not going to know that those cookies are invalid until the next request back to the server, right? So I'm still going to see the last screen that I had, and the next time I click a button, if that ends up in a server request, my cookies are going to be seen as invalid, and then your authorization rules are going to take over. You get signed in again, you get redirected to sign in, whatever. In JavaScript apps that are calling APIs, like I think the whole Azure Portal, of course, is a bunch of JavaScript running. Those aren't typically using cookies per se to talk back to their backends. They're using access tokens. So, what happens in that kind of a scenario?
Right. So you basically just got to the third method of
Oh, I'm
single
sorry.
sign-out, and that's
I didn't mean
and
to
that's
jump
great
ahead.
because
Jumping the gun.
that's where I was going to. So that's the third and the last way of doing single sign-out, and that's the method called session management. So if you're a single page app, exactly like you said, you don't do any cookies. You don't have any backend. Usually just call you have a backend, but it's a stateless backend. You call the APIs, or you can just completely rely on Microsoft Graph or some other third party services. So, the only thing you need to know is to actually, get the information that something happened with the session to actually react on it. So the way this is handled is actually via JavaScript embedded into the web page, which is constantly checking with Azure AD whether the session has changed. So how this works is, let me see if my app is still running. Yeah. I will open the developer tools for this one as well. So when I sign into this ASP.NET application, I'll just clear this again so we get the nice one. So what the code behind in the browser is going to do, okay, here we go. It actually created a tiny little iframe. I'll zoom in again, which is pointing to login.microsoft online / the tenant ID auth2 / check session. It's actually the check session session management endpoint of Azure AD. Now you can get this from the OpenID Connect metadata. It's actually part of it. You can get this URL for each tenant. So if I was to go to our tenants metadata, you could figure out that there is the check session endpoint. It's called check session iframe, and it's pointing to the tenant ID / check session. So this is an iframe which is rendered behind the scenes, and what the code is doing right now in JavaScript, that it's constantly pinging, it's posting messages to this iframe, and it's asking, has something changed? Has the session changed? And here's my session ID. So thanks to this, when the user signs out, again, for instance, from another service, from the Azure Portal or some other application that's not even single sign-out aware, that just redirects you to Azure AD for ending the session, you will get the information. Now, this is actually done in a way that the Azure AD, and one of the Azure AD cookies here, is the session ID, which will contain the current session. And if I make a change, so I sign out, it's going to get to know. So I'll demonstrate this again by signing into the Azure Portal again. I should just refresh this, and yes, I'm in the Azure Portal. All right, and now I'm going to sign out. This is going to happen fairly quickly, so I'll just put it here and just hit sign out. And in about, you see, it's already loading. Something's happening here, and I've been signed out. The JavaScript has got an information from Azure AD that my session has changed, and it noticed, okay, this session is expired, so the only thing I can do is, sign you out from the app, and if you want to get back into the application, sign back in. So if I go sign back in, I'll be prompted with Azure AD, enter my password, or do my MFA, and I can use the application again. And how this is working behind the scenes, I have slightly touched it from the description. So what happens in the code is behind the scenes, there is a iframe created, which is persistent. It's rendered on the page, and it's coming from the metadata. I'll also show a different code. This is actually from a Microsoft code sample. So you can go ahead and use this on GitHub. I have slightly refactored it for a project we've been doing, and I can probably share that on GitHub as well. It's a slightly, I would say, nicely written piece of class in JavaScript which you can embed and use. So once we create the iframe, next thing that we do in the JavaScript is that we tell it we need to, periodically call Azure AD, or just call the window, that the iframe that we have created, and check the actual session, whether it has changed or not. This works by window-to-window communication, so it's behind the scenes, it's posting messages, and it's listening for the response. Now, when the message is posted, the Azure AD check sessions site receives it. It compares the response. It compares the session ID, and if it's still the same, it tells you nothing has changed. You can continue. But if you receive a changed information, so the session ID is not matching, something's different, what you should do is you should prompt the user to re-authenticate, because they are very likely to have signed out, or something has happened with the user section. Mm-hmm. So this is the way to handle it with single page apps.
That's awesome. I love it.
One of the dangers of
I've just never really. So
we're more concerned about sign in, not sign out these days.
No, I'm just thinking. So this is part of your project, right? So this is listening for the post message from the iframe, right?
Yes.
So the iframe is sitting there, and eventually it will post a message to the host frame, right? To the outer window.
Exactly.
And that outer window is running in your app in the single sign out CSHTML, right?
Yes.
And then that's the thing that handles. That's what then handles telling. That's that account session changed call that gets made, right? And what code is in that session changed? So
in the session changed, it's just a simple controller implementation. So it's in the accounts, and in the session changed, what you do is basically you challenge the user to re-authenticate.
Oh, okay, cool.
Can you zoom into that, please?
Yes, of course. This is the Microsoft sample, so I'll post a link to it, so you can publish it to the viewers. And this is basically what you should do. The danger of this, however, is imagine you have a line of business ad. You're filling out your expense report.
God.
Okay, you're filling something out. And it's a really complicated, complex form. And what happens is you have multiple browser windows, and you confuse the sessions, and you hit sign out. Now, this code would basically go ahead and drop what you've basically dropped all of the things you have been doing, because it would just redirect you to the session change endpoint, and you're basically signed out, and you have lost the context of what you've been doing. So it's actually more suited for single page apps, like full single page apps, not like a hybrid applications, because the single page app can actually just go very easily through MSAL in JavaScript, and instead of redirecting you to the sign-in page, it can just create a pop-up, so you don't lose the context of your work. You sign in the pop-up window, and you get back into the app with all the things you've been doing.
Right.
So primarily, you don't want to do this on really big forms, or kind of apps like that.
Hey,
Hey,
thanks,
C-Sharp Fritz
C
is
Sharp
here.
Fritz. Yeah, hey, thanks for bringing everybody over. Hey, everybody.
Yeah,
What were you all working
that's
on over there? I saw he mentioned on Twitter earlier he was working on, I think, some
Blazor,
more Blazor stuff. Yeah,
ClipTalk.
yeah, that's awesome. Clip Talk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so.
yeah, it's
Must be
awesome.
ClipTalk. Yeah, thank you
So
for
welcome
coming.
everybody.
We're talking about single sign out. We've done single sign in, but we've never done single sign out on this stream. So we got our friend Han to come and talk to us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
single
yeah,
sign
so,
out.
yeah, yeah.
So that way, when you're done with
All the
work, you click
Blazor.
sign out and you walk away. So yeah, it's a bunch of Blazor. That's awesome. Well, hey, thanks for the raid. Thanks for coming and hanging out. We still got a little ways to go. We're gonna ride into the afternoon a little bit and keep looking at single sign out. Right now, we're posting messages back and forth to sign people out. It's actually surprising. Like I have to admit, I was a little like single sign out, really, but I'm super impressed.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff is awesome. Like it's just I honestly I don't think I've ever had a requirement of implementing single sign out. I don't think I've ever actually implemented single sign out in 10 years. So it's been super cool to see. So yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things I would like to point out is, when you handle single sign in, you can very easily, as I've shown in the ASP.NET Core middleware, you can very easily set up single sign out, and you don't need to write a single line of code unless you're building a JavaScript, single page app where you actually need to do the checking session. But
Right.
other than that, just go ahead and fill out the address in the Azure portal for the front channel sign out, and you're good to go with the single sign out.
So .NET Core will take care of you. What about if I have, say, a Python app or a Kotlin app?
Right. So if you have a Python app, I believe you will have to implement this on your own.
Right.
So you will need to you will just need to handle the situation where you actually receive the request, get the
Yep.
session ID, and you somehow need to handle what you do, because there are many ways to persist the user session. Usually you use cookies for it, or use a session cookie for instance in PHP, so you need to do some session handling there. But other than that, you're good to go. I actually implemented this in PHP, so it works.
I mean,
By choice?
If you have if you have a sample that you can share, it's not it's no NDA or it's not private, and you have something that you want to link to, because people are not people that watch the show don't always just do .NET. So it's nice to have the mix of
Yeah.
languages and implementations.
Unfortunately, I cannot share the PHP piece of code, but
It's fine. It's fine.
there are two reasons for that. It was a very long time ago, and let's say,
Okay, we can leave it there.
No, we get it.
Yeah.
We get it. Message
We
received.
feel the sentiment. Yeah, we send the sentiment. Say no more. Exactly.
Okay, so
Yeah,
so one
so-
more. I got a question for you. So obviously this is web, so mobile phones in the browser and all that sort of stuff too. Is there any sort of standard concept for mobile apps?
For mobile apps on single sign-out, I believe the only implementation I have seen is via Microsoft Authenticator. I haven't gone really deep into it, but they have quite recently, a couple months ago, announced the support for shared devices, which is actually based upon Microsoft Authenticator, as far as I understood it. And it sort of handles the way that when you sign out of the device session from the Authenticator, it's going to sign out from all the apps that have been signed in with the Authenticator. But I haven't really gone deeper into this than that.
Yeah, I don't want to sign out on anything on my phone because it takes so long to get it set up again. It's just like, ugh, what a nightmare trying to do it. So, but yeah, I guess I was wondering if there's any sort of standard way, but it doesn't. It sounds like it's really up to the app builders and how they're going to authenticate. I mean, I guess on mobile too, there's so much gets conflated between like mobile device management and the the web browser and the device identity and sign into a specific app versus signing into your device. Like it's just a total. Like mobile devices are just a complete mess.
I'm gonna try it now. I am going to sign out from Teams. Wish me luck. And then
I think.
and then I want to see what happens when I try to access Outlook. I need to find how to sign out.
I don't think you would need. You would need to sign out from Teams, but you should probably remove the account from Authenticator. That would sign you out from Teams and Outlook.
Oh no! I don't want to move it from the Authenticator because that will take so I can actually say which one I want to sign out. So select an account. Oh, it signed me out. Okay, so let me see if I close this one down. Okay.
Because there's all sorts of interesting single sign in, like. You'll sign into, Office, like the Office app or Teams or something. It'll know that you're there, and I don't know if it's I don't know if that's an authenticator, if that's going through Authenticator or through some other kind of app-to-app communication to know the accounts that are already there.
On iOS, it's partially using the keychain discovery. I'm not sure how it's on Android, but on iOS, it's partially the keychain and it's partially Authenticator doing this.
Yeah, so I signed out from Teams. It signed me back in again.
Yeah, because you have Authenticator.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, you're already authenticated. So for that, I can't test it. I mean, I don't want to sign out from all my accounts because it will be a nightmare to get back into them. I have so many things running now on single sign-on my phone, which is great. Like you go on holiday and then you come back and your refresh tokens will take care of everything, which is fantastic. But
or you can have an Android phone like I do with Work Profile, which is absolutely abysmal. I mean, Work Profile itself has one killer feature, which is a button, and when you click that button, all your work apps turn off. Other than that, it's a total nightmare.
So that's the reason why I can't switch to Android, because I don't trust Google. I don't want to give them any money. And then secondly, Work Profile is appalling.
Yeah, Work Profile.
Do you have to
just alienate half of our audience that have Android phones?
No, I mean I've got a lot of Android phones actually. I've got my old iPhone and stuff, but I can't. Like you can't copy and paste. You can't copy from work side to personal and vice versa. So it's like, oh, we're going to put a device-wide VPN on your phone so we can filter traffic and look for malicious websites. But God forbid you copy and paste from personal to work or vice versa. It's like you take a photo with your phone to send to somebody, and then so everybody just talks through like Signal and stuff because it's easier.
Fuel Snabble wants to bring Windows Phone back. You know what?
I do.
You get my vote.
I do too. I actually got an email. I got an email yesterday. I'm gonna read it to you. Hang on a sec.
Oh, is it from? Is it from a prince that offers you money, or is it?
Oh no, I always respond to those. I have a form letter that I send back to them. I got one yesterday, and it told me. Hang on. It says. Oh no, I'm not going to be able to find it. But I mean, whatever. It's okay. It essentially said. Oh, here it says you need to update your device's operating system. It's from like IT, right? It's from our IT group, and they say your device is shown below is running an outdated operating system, and it's an HP Elite X3. It is my old HP Elite Windows phone,
nice.
Which apparently has been plugged in the closet for years and is still running and still connected to work. So wow. It says I have to update the OS by March 8th. Sadly, I don't think that I don't think I will be able to update it and keep it. I've still got a whole box of them in the other room. A Windows Phone was absolutely my favorite. It was easy to use. It was quick. Those big giant Lumias were enormous. Like those are my favorite. Yep. So it's kind of
stunning screens. Great way to interact with your apps. Man, I miss them.
Yeah, and the great thing was this unified device management. So you had you managed it the same way as any Windows device. So it had the same policies. Yeah. I was just trying to look on my table, but I can't find it. I had a Lumia somewhere here because I want to actually try installing the Windows 10 ARM 64 on it to see, because some people from the community had done it. So I was like, okay, I have some spare time, let's get it done. But now I can't find the phone. But I'm sure it's here somewhere.
Yeah, I've done that. It's I mean, it's kind of what you would expect. It's Windows running on a phone. It's sort of like Windows running on a very slow old tablet, but it still works. I mean, like, in fact, speaking of old Windows tablets, look at this. I just found this the other day.
Is that a Windows CE?
No, it's a Dell Venue Pro 8. It
Does
ran
it run
Windows
I
Windows 7?
remember it.
Windows 7,
Yeah.
Windows 8. Nice.
It ran Windows 8.1. It actually runs Windows 10, although poorly. But anyway, yeah, I do miss Windows Phone. I was a big fan of the hub thing, where like it would consolidate all of your data from 50 different apps into one place. So like your
Yes.
social thing showed you Twitter
Yes.
and Facebook and all LinkedIn, all that stuff, all in one thread. So you
And then
wouldn't
LinkedIn,
have to.
LinkedIn broke the contract, and you couldn't get LinkedIn data anymore. Do you remember that?
But that
thing?
was, and nothing of value was lost, so it was no big deal, right? So.
Dude, we own
Oh wait,
LinkedIn.
sorry. Oh well, but that's okay. I mean, we own GitHub too, and I love GitHub. So
True.
anyway, yeah. So it was. I liked how you signed into the phone, right? You signed into the device, the Windows Phone device, and it would get certificates and all that kind of stuff you needed, like for work. So you'd go to like a work website on your phone, and you didn't have to like sign in an MFA. It was just like sitting at your PC on your desktop, and it would use your Windows Hello or use your smart card or whatever. And it was just great. So you didn't have to sign in like 8 bazillion times. I mean, I switched to Android from an iPhone, I don't know. It's been probably at least 2 or 3 years now. And it's just not bad. I mean, I really don't mind it. I actually quite like the Android thing. And the Surface Duo thing is neat, although
You gave it away.
You really
still-
gave it away?
I've
She
still
gave it
still
away.
got it. It's right here.
Oh,
What are
You
what are
kept
talking
it?
about?
I thought you were going to trade it in for your new Samsung thingy.
No, I got it the Samsung really cheap, so I thought, whatever. So I'll keep it. Why not? My wife's like, "Why do you have all these phones?" I'm like, "Look, don't question. Like, don't like,
Hoarding
trust,
devices. Hoarding
trust the
devices.
process. Trust the process." So
My daughters ask the same. Why do you have so many computers around the house? Like, why not? You can never have enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I
want
really regret not having an ecosystem around Windows Phone. That was what killed it, to be honest. I jumped from my Windows Phone to an Android, not to my iPhone back in 2015 when I was going to a conference and my Windows Phone died. I said I'm going to switch to my it was my Android phone that I had with me, my backup phone, and I had my Microsoft band. Do you remember the bands?
Yeah, those were cool.
Yeah.
So I had it connected to my Windows Phone. So since my phone died, I said, well, I might sync it as well to my Android because I'll be using it all day. And that thing came to life. Like my Windows band was working better with my Android phone. I also found out that Windows Phone and Twitter did not really work well because it was not a first-party app. So it had a limited API rate, which meant that I could get an email saying somebody responded to me on Twitter before I saw it on Twitter on my phone. And I got so upset with that. He's like, screw that, I'm going to get a different phone. And that was when I gave up on my Windows Phone. 2015, in some January day in London, I decided to give up on my Windows Phone persistence because I was a big fan.
Yeah, it's
I
too
have a
bad.
similar experience. Very similar experience with that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, sorry. Fuel says, sorry. What's happening, folks? Well, Vishal, we just looked at 25 different ways to single sign you out from various applications, and now we're all lamenting the death of Windows Phone.
We can revive
So-
it. Trust me. If we have enough votes, we can go back to.
I don't think there's a
go back
Windows
to
Phone.
Satya.
I don't think there's a Windows Phone user voice for that one. Somebody,
We can sign. Someone signs a petition.
somebody reserved the name and has promptly shut it down. They're like, no.
Oh, really?
So no, I'm just kidding. I mean, who knows? Just anyway, yeah, it's sad, but such is life. So anyway, sorry, Jan, continue. Don't let us distract you anymore.
No, this was a very, very nice discussion. I actually remembered a lot of nice times. Fun fact, the Czech Republic, where I'm from, was actually one of the
Top.
top countries with the
Yep.
Windows Phone adoption. So,
Nice.
you could
Yeah.
ride on the metro, and there were so many people with Windows phones. It was amazing. So, really nostalgic.
Eastern Europe and I think a few places in Asia were quite big adopters of Windows
Yeah.
Phone. UK was okay. I think we had some like 9% usage, and at some point we got to 2 digits, but it never really got off because of I think it was the app ecosystem that killed the whole thing. Like this was the ecosystem, right? You had, I've arrived in your hotel, I can download the app. On Windows Phone, it was like, will I find an app or will there be an app? Whereas on Android and iPhone, it was like, do I want the app? So just having to consider that question, it was just crazy. I remember at some point I reached out to the Slack CEO to say, will you sponsor me and a couple of other people to write a Slack app for Slack, because there was no Slack for Windows Phone.
Yeah, there actually was a Slack app that was marginally decent for Windows Phone towards the end. Like, I remember using it near the very, very end. It was actually pretty okay, but yeah. It was just it was a sad day. So.
Reminiscing on the past, yeah. But I miss the fact that there's no third competitor or third player in the mobile ecosystem, because right now it's just Apple and Android. Android has appalling privacy settings, and I don't like it for that. And now I wish there was a third player in the market to just shake things up.
Yeah, it's time for Palm to come back.
For what?
For Palm?
Palm.
Palm.
Yeah.
Palm OS, bring it on. I mean, BlackBerry could be a contender if they moved away from keyboards and devices.
I think the most recent ones were actually running on Android. The most
I think so too.
They have.
I don't think it's the same BlackBerry that we remembered.
Phil Snabel saying Huawei is launching their own OS. Yeah, I heard that even the new Samsung watches will move away from Tizen. So there's movement in the micro devices operating systems, but I don't know what will happen.
Yeah, I've got a what's this thing called? It's a Pine phone. It's like an open source ARM phone, and it runs Ubuntu poorly, but it does run it. It just needs to be optimized, but it's actually pretty neat. I put my SIM card in it and used it for a little while. It was pretty neat. It's actually pretty cool little device. And when you think like it's just Ubuntu, right? I mean, people have gotten all sorts of cool stuff running on it. But
2021 is the year of mobile Linux.
That's right.
Saying. Yeah, you never know. It could take off.
That's right. It could. Stranger things have happened.
True.
So,
and don't forget there was Firefox OS as well.
That's right. There was. There's so many. Yeah. So many mobile operating systems. There's Sailfish. Sailfish, was that the one? It was like a bunch of Nokia guys got together and started working on it after Nokia got bought and then got killed and then came back to life as like an Android phone company. I don't know. But I think the Nokia name was sold to another group who's using the Nokia name but is manufacturing the phones totally differently. So, but I've heard the new Nokias are pretty good, like the 6.2 or whatever it is. So, anyway, all right. So, Jan, you got anything else for us today?
Yeah, I got probably 2 or 3 more things which I would like to demonstrate. They have nothing to. Well, they're not really related to single sign-out. They're more related to general, slightly more advanced scenarios with Azure AD, which can be done. So we can dive into those if you guys want.
Yeah, let's dig in.
Yeah, man.
All right, so I'll just clean up my Visual Studios. And
I've never heard of Visual Studios in plural.
Oh,
like it.
Okay. I run many. All right, so we're going to start with this thing. So this is I have a code here of an application. It's a Radius application which lets you to authenticate into Wi-Fi's into Azure AD, but that's not the important part. The important part here is that the page or the application has some administrative section, And it should stay really private because it contains some secret informations which we don't want people to see.
Yes.
And the topic I have and the solution for this is Re-Authentication. So actually forcing the user to go through the authentication process again. For instance, when accessing some, let's say, private part of the website, where you want to make sure that their authentication session is fresh, that is fairly recent, and you have assurance that it's actually the user or it's the owner of the account interacting with it.
Would you also be using roles here to do that in combination with re-authenticating? Would you expect them to have a specific role or be part of a specific group to further increase that?
Yeah, you can elevate the user into the role or into the group. So, and we will actually touch the groups a little bit later in the second topic. But for the re-authentication, this is just really making sure that the user had provided their password fairly recently to the application.
It's almost like going into your HR data and you don't want some random person to, while you left your PC, to go and look at your HR information, right? So you need to
exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. So I'll just briefly explain this application. You may not be familiar with this sort of, I'll just zoom in again, with this sort of source code layout. It's actually not built on top of MVC. It's actually using a .NET framework. It's called .vvm. It's being developed by our friends who actually have offices below. It's part of .NET Foundation. And
so is it an MVVM framework for?
Yeah, it's a very interesting MVVM framework for .NET. And I have written this app in it, when trying to learn from it. And on this app, I actually learned to do most of the identity tricks because it was sort of my playground. So what we have here is an admin section. I have an index view model. So this defines the website. It pulls some information from Microsoft Graph. Again, this is a fairly old code, which I haven't maintained properly. So you see that here we are actually checking for the user to be in the administrative role. And we want to do one more thing. Maybe let me just show how it works. I'll first run the application and show you how it looks. And you can see that I'm actually compiling it in .NET 6 already.
Very nice.
.NET 6 SDK.
Man. Did you change the target of the CS Proj to be .NET 6 or
it's still 2.2, I believe. It's fairly an old app, but using the most recent SDK for this.
Gotcha.
All right, so let's hope it boots up. I hope I got all my secrets correct. Okay, this looks promising. Cool, here we go. So I'll load the application. And hopefully it's going to load. Yeah, my CPU is getting quite a stress test run with the OBS in the browser.
Is it a laptop or is it a desktop?
It's a desktop, but it's got a fairly old CPU. I believe like 10-year-old i7.
Oh,
so
wow.
it's my old gaming computer, but it's still good for coding when you're not using the OBS. So, no, it's 3.4 gigahertz, and it's maxed out basically. I hope that we get it to load at least. Okay, something's happening. Finally. Okay, here we go. So I'll just sign in here to show you. It's a very, very simple app. So it implements single sign-in. It also implements single sign-out via the session management. So behind the scenes, there is a similar JavaScript code as I have been showing. I can actually show this one because it's much more cleaner JavaScript code, which you can use to put into your application.
JavaScript and clean. Did you use that in the same sentence?
Yes, I have, sir. I will show that. I will show that once I restart the application to actually include the re-authentication code. So here
apparently people are going to start a GoFundMe to get you a new AMD Threadripper CPU so you can come to stream more often. Thank you, guys. BSD is awesome. Thank you, BSD.
So I'll just hit the admin section.
Ah, look at that. Nice UI as well.
Yeah, it's a bootstrap. And once I hit the admin section, nothing happened. I don't have the re-authentication enabled. So now I'm potentially accessing some sensitive info. You can see we have some, group settings, some permissions, and default settings. All right.
Oh, you can remove groups. That's a lot of privilege.
But by clicking this, I would just kill our company VPN basically.
Yeah.
So it's not something you want to leave out in the open, right?
Yeah.
So I'll just close it and modify the app. What I have done is I have created an attribute which is called force re-authentication, I believe. Okay, it's not hinting me, so I will find it in the code search. Re-authenticate. Actually got the DevOps here, which I'm searching in.
Control T.
It's called. I don't think the computer would like Control T right now in the Visual Studio.
Are you using ReSharper as well?
Not really. Just a clean, plain clean Visual Studio 2019 preview, like living on the edge, and no special add-ons here. So I got this tiny attribute. It says require re-authentication, and there is a value that goes inside, and it's the time elapsed since last authentication, since the last time the user has entered their credentials. So it's in seconds. So I'm going to set, say, 30 seconds. I don't want anyone in the admin center without entering their password in the past 30 seconds. If it got higher, they need to put it again. Obviously, you would probably put a higher number there, not just 30 seconds. You would go with like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 1 hour, just to make sure that the person interacting with it is actually who they say they are. So I'll put this attribute here. I will start running the application. I will send the first request to it. And before it loads, I'll tell you what it does. So let's wait for it to. Oh, I'm also running this one, so I think I can probably shut it down. And hopefully it will be faster. Oh, by the way, performance tip. In the most recent Microsoft Edge releases, you can sleep your tabs. So if you have too many windows open and too many tabs, you can actually make Edge put them on sleep so they're not going to take your memory and CPU if you're not interacting with the tabs that you have open. So it's quite
cool.
a cool feature. All right, so I'll send the request now. It will start loading, and I'm going to explain what's happening behind the scenes. So basically, doing re-authentication requires two parts, which you need to do. The first part is actually telling Azure AD that you want the user to re-authenticate. This is done very simply. You just go ahead and tell Azure AD and add a parameter when you're authenticated. So it will be right here. And this is actually saying the user should re-authenticate, passing an information from the attribute to the OpenID Connect middleware. These are the OpenID Connect middleware events. You see that there is still ADAL and not Microsoft Identity Web as the ways that it should be done now, but fairly old application. And the thing that I'm doing here is I'm actually adding protocol message. So simply you're adding into the query string, you're adding a maximum age parameter, telling it the number of seconds of which the session shouldn't be older than. So if you put a 0, it will always prompt the user for the password. If you put some other number, it's going to check whether the user entered their password in that time frame, and if they did, it will just let them go through. If they didn't, it's going to force them to re-authenticate and enter their password again. So this is one of the things you need to do. Another thing which you need to do is to actually verify that the password has been re-entered. So this is reflected in the token which you received from Azure Active Directory, and that is actually, the verification is done in the require re-authentication attribute, which actually goes into the token. It checks the claims. There is a special claim in the token which is called auth time. The auth time contains the information, the time value, when the user entered their password last time. So this is what you actually need to verify, that the user had entered the password before entering before going to that protected section. So you can make a safe assumption, yes, they are really who they are, because that's the only safe information that you get, because the token is cryptographically signed by the signing keys, and this information is safe to trust it. On some forums, I have found that people have recommended for re-authentication using the prompt query parameter, which actually results in the user being displayed the number of accounts that they are currently signed in with, but it doesn't force the re-entry of their password. So don't use prompt for re-authentication. I have done it in the past because I thought it was doing something it wasn't doing, and the only appropriate way to do it is with the maximum age attribute. So now I believe I should be in the app. So I'll just single sign into the application. And since it's using my previous section and my previous session, and I don't really remember the last time I have entered my password, the first thing when we open the admin section of the app again, I'm going to get prompted to re-authenticate, because the last time I entered password was I don't even know when, because I have the account connected to my Windows. So whenever I open a site which needs me to log in, I'm already signed in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the admin. The attribute should notice that I haven't entered my password recently. And you see it's putting me into the Azure AD endpoint. It's giving me the account selection because I'm also signed in with my private account. And when I hit my account, it's going to tell me, because you're accessing sensitive information, we'll send you a request to verify your identity. Now, you can obviously go ahead and use another authentication method. So you can go with entering your password. You can use the Windows Hello or a FIDO key, or you can go ahead with Microsoft Authenticator. So I'll just go ahead with Microsoft Authenticator.
So it isn't necessarily forcing a password per se. It's forcing a re-authentication of some flavor, of whatever flavor you've got available. Yeah, okay.
Yes. Right now, I wasn't able to figure out if there is a specific way to say, I want the user to authenticate only with Authenticator. I don't think that's possible right now. Even though, if you would look into the token that you receive, it's going to contain the information. It's in the AMR attribute or claim of the token, and it would contain the method which you have signed in with.
AMR's a V1 thing only, though.
Yeah, that's another thing, that it's only in V1 tokens.
Although we hear it's going to be making another appearance in the future, but maybe V3. So, okay, separate question, because while this is running. So we had a friend of our show ask us the other day about Radius with Azure AD, and there's just nothing. We haven't really seen much commercial that just works, right? Like just out of the box, and the things that do work all seem to be very provider specific. Like, was it Meraki has one that's very specific to them, and I can't remember if it was Barracuda or somebody else. They had one that's very specific to their platform. So this Radius 365, is this a product that people can buy on a separate note?
That was a point a couple of years ago when we were proactively building this. So I'll just talk on the re-authentication because my session will expire in a moment. So I have just re-authenticated. I can now access it, and everything's good. If I hit F5 in a few seconds, I will get re-prompted again. And to answer your question, the point of this app or service which is running was actually to provide managed software as a service Radius, which you can just go ahead and put into your Wi-Fi or into your VPN. We actually built it just for VPN. So we could authenticate with our credentials, not your actual Azure AD password. That's not technically possible and will never be possible.
Sure.
What you need to do is you actually create and you generate a separate password for your account, which you then use into the VPN. So it's using Azure AD behind the scenes, especially the group memberships. As you can see, they're okay. Now, okay, that 30 seconds wasn't smart. So let me do it again, and I will stay on that page for a brief moment.
And then we could use the same model for Step Up, right? For Step Up MFA. Well, you can't really. I guess you can't really say please require MFA, right? Like outside of B2C, you're just going to force a re-auth, and it's going to be whatever method somebody has set up.
Yeah, if you want to, well, there is a way. There is an attribute which you can send, but I don't think it works with Azure AD, and that's. Basically, just like MaxH, you can supply the parameters, the authentication methods which you want to receive in the token, but that's in the OpenID Connect protocol, and I don't think that Azure AD implements that.
Yeah.
So in this Radius app, we actually have the Azure AD groups. We use security groups, mail-enabled security groups, or just Office 365 groups to define permissions. We then have, and this is going to show Okay, I can't open Radius clients, but because that would show the secrets, we don't have them masked there. But what it effectively does is it's actually allowing you to register your Radius client, like the Wi-Fi access point or Wi-Fi controller or your VPN server, by its IP address, and it gives you the secret which you need to authenticate via Radius, or to make a secure connection. And then we have two concepts. We have a concept of verifiers and providers. This is actually what we took from B2C, because in B2C you have the same concept of verifiers and attribute providers. So the attribute verifier actually, this is going to be very ugly user interface because no one has touched it, but it still works. So this actually makes sure that the attribute verifier can make sure that the person authenticating against a special identifier for VPN, we are using SoftAdder, which is a very cool open source project for VPN built by a Japanese university. And you can basically enforce group memberships or some specific user type that, for instance, you want the user to be a guest user, or to be a member user, in the Azure AD, or it can be an external user if you're using Eduroam, which is a educational Wi-Fi network for schools over here, or maybe it's also in the US. And this allows you to filter users. So, for instance, we also use it for VPNs into some of our customers, where you can see that we actually require the user to authenticate into this specific VPN, which is a school VPN, which we help them with network management, to actually be members of these two specific groups. It also works with B2B guests. So if you just invite someone into your Azure AD and they sign up for this service, they will be able to, as guests, enter your network or authenticate against your VPN as well. So this is the attribute verifiers. We also have a concept of providers, because when you have the Radius protocol, you also want to give some information to your access points. For example, the VLAN or the virtual LAN network that the user belongs to, or some speed limits based on membership. We don't really actively use them, but these actually work as well. So, for instance, you can set some conditions, like if I am accessing some specific Wi-Fi network, and the user is member of a group, employees or management, I will just give them faster or slower internet by providing the Radius attribute here and setting its value. So this is sort of a software as a service Radius app that we have built. It's being used in production by a bunch of schools and universities who actually use it to access and take part in the Eduroam network, which actually federates multiple Wi-Fi networks via the Radius protocol. And they wanted to have it federated with Azure AD, so we deployed it for them. But they're not really actively maintaining this project. But if there's anyone in the community wanting to contribute, I'm happy to share the source code and maybe onboard you to the team and see how we can push this forward.
All right, awesome. So we've actually had a couple people asking if it's available to either buy or if it sources anywhere, like how it's released, how it's sold, etc. So yeah, be sure to hook us up with contact info. We'll make sure it gets to sure it gets to people who are asking.
Right now, the source is in our DevOps. It's not open source, and I don't believe that there would be any issue to make it open source. It has some dependencies, a lot of dependencies which haven't been moved to Docker. So, for instance, it actually relies on an actual Radius server running on a Linux machine in Azure. but we have all the configuration set, so we can probably share it and get anyone up and running with this. So, anyways, back to the topic. I didn't want to make this a marketing talk about what we have built couple years ago. That's obviously not the point. So this is the way that you should re-authenticate users if you need to do that. Some Microsoft products actually do it. When you were entering the now that Skype for Business admin center, it actually prompted you to re-enter your password whenever you were initiating a new session against the Skype for Business site. The same was being done by Microsoft Dynamics 365 or Dataverse nowadays, or Power Apps. So when you were accessing some sensitive business information, you were getting these prompts from time to time to actually to force you to enter your password. So this was the re-authentication in Azure AD. And the last thing, and I'm not sure how are we on time, guys, because I haven't
We got
been really...
14 minutes.
Okay, perfect. So the last thing I have got for this session is just a little peek behind the scenes into Microsoft Identity Web, because I have been trying to contribute to it, and I just wanted to show you what we've been cooking and a little bit explain a few things behind that, and why I actually think it's pretty cool. So, 2 months ago, I have submitted a feature request into Microsoft Identity Web to introduce 2 new functions, 2 new methods, to actually authorize for groups and authorize for roles, to extend the HTTP context extension methods. Briefly, the issue is that when you receive a token from Azure AD, it can contain the groups the user is member of. The issue with that is that the token is very limited in the amount of groups that it can contain, and usually user is member of many more groups. I believe the limit right now is about 100 in the token, if I'm not mistaken.
200 in JWTs, but yeah.
200, okay.
Yep.
So that's still quite limiting, especially if you're a big company or you use groups for a lot of things. We have over, I would say, we have very many Office 365 groups that you can be member of. So now the token can contain the groups, and I'll zoom in a little bit. It's actually very nicely explained in the documentation. So there is a claim called groups, which will contain an array of groups, and like JP said, it's 200 groups that you can have in the token. Now, if you are over 200, if you're just 201 or more, what's going to happen is you will get a claim which is called has groups. It will be set to true, and you will have another claim which will contain the basically the information where you go to pull those groups for that specific user. So it's pointing you to Microsoft Graph endpoint to actually get the groups that you're a member of. Another issue with these groups is that, as far as I know, and I'm not sure if it's written here, the groups that you will get are actually the only groups that you're a direct member of. So it's not a cascade membership. So, for instance, if you have a group that is member of a group, you will not get the nested the top level group that you're a member of. You will only get the bottom level group in your code. So, for instance, if you want to do some more deeper permission stuff, it's something that is not going to work like this. So that is the authorized for groups. Another issue with authorizing the Azure AD groups is that when you have the groups in the token by default stores in the cookies, and I actually written an article about that because it was a big issue in iOS. When you had too many cookies, basically the cookie size was too big for that page. Well, it wasn't literally too big, but it was, I think, over 8 kilobytes in the token itself. If you had 200 groups, um, basically iPhone or Safari basically stopped sending some of those cookies. So your session wasn't built correctly on the server, so they couldn't construct the print claims principle, and you ended up in a re-authentication loop. You basically just authenticate because it wasn't able to set the cookies. So this method should make it much more easier for you to actually authorize the user based on the groups that you need. So all you have to do is actually call authorize for groups, put in the group IDs which you want to check against, and you'll get the result whether the user is authorized or not, which it actually uses the transient membership, which is provided by the check member groups function. So you can provide it up to 20 groups to actually check the permissions. So if you're building an app and you're building security around group membership, which is very common, especially for elevation or directories without Azure AD Premium, this is one of the ways that you will be able to handle this in Microsoft Identity Web. Another method that I'm trying to get introduced is authorized for tenant roles. So this is actually going to make it easier to authorize the user. And for instance, I want to allow all the global administrators of Azure AD to access the administration of my app, no matter whether they're actually explicitly set as admins, because global admins should have access everywhere as per Office 365 and Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So all you have to do for the role authorization is simply provide the role template ID, which can be found in the Microsoft documentation list of the provided groups, and it's going to tell you, the user is global admin, so you can let them in or not. So this is one of the things that I hope is going to come into Microsoft Identity Web. I have actually submitted a pull request, and it's now having the tests being built around it. But by the Microsoft Identity Web team. So hopefully we'll be able to get it out into Microsoft Identity Web soon, and everybody will be able to benefit from this, because I think it's very important. For instance, when you're building Azure functions, in past year I've blogged about using Microsoft Identity Web in Azure functions, so you can use this to actually do proper authorization in Azure functions to actually check whether the user has the permissions that you need or not. So this is it.
Nice.
Interesting.
Yeah, the roles one would be amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about it yet. I'm gonna have to noodle it. I don't want to encourage people to use groups for authorization. That's my problem.
No, they should use roles. I'm saying. But groups it's a necessity, right? I mean, a lot of organizations have dependencies on groups these days, and
yeah.
No, I know. I'm not saying that it reflects the reality of what people are doing. I'm saying we don't want to encourage the behavior of using groups directly for roles, right? Because part of it is we're members. All of us are members of hundreds of groups. So you and I, Christos, and you, Jan, at your workplaces. We're members of hundreds of groups, and the overage, having to call the overage, is almost a guarantee, right?
Yep.
And but I'm a member of all these groups, and maybe one or two of them are relevant to this specific app, right, or to these collection of apps. And so there's all this extra data that comes down with the groups. That's why it's sort of But I totally get. I mean, I've got old code that translates groups into roles, right, for the same reason, because it's puts them into role claims
Yeah.
at sign-in for exactly the same reason, which is the reality is that there's still plenty of places that are still using groups directly as opposed to assigning groups to roles, or don't have P1 to assign groups to roles, or whatever. So
Yep.
no, it's an awesome new request. Especially I think the tenant roles one is sorely needed, and the groups one, I think trying to figure out what to do with groups is already like, how do I do overage and all that sort of stuff, like that needs to be abstracted away.
Yep.
I just don't want people to say, "Oh, cool! I've got my authorized for groups. Problem solved. Let's put everybody in groups."
Yeah.
Like we got somebody asking us right now. They're like, "What's the maximum number of roles we can add to an app so that we can?" Because we create a group for every single one, for every role, and we create a role for every group. It's
Wow.
like, oh no, oh no. So, but yeah. Ideally, we'd love to see people using groups assigned into roles, because then you can assume a role for virtually any reason, right? Like, I could be a member of a role because I'm in support, and the people who actually need to be in that role for a business reason would be in a separate group. But the fact that we both have the same role, and we did some cool stuff with PIM in roles via PIM elevation to groups and stuff. It's kind of the same thing. So. Make sure you send us a link to this so that we can
Absolutely.
so that we can socialize it. So, well, cool.
Actually, the elevation to PIM for groups is actually pretty awesome as well. I really love that. The thing is, when you're building a software as a service, you have a really big variety of tenants signing up, and you can't really control the licenses they have. So.
Yeah,
and very likely they won't have the P1 or P2, so it gets to be limiting.
We're building a role manager for B2C. We being like me, I guess, but just because we have people that need it. So we're going to take all the app role functionality that's in the underlying Azure AD and push it into B2C, and I got to go build a UI for it before the customer starts yelling at me as to where it is yet. So.
That's actually something I could use on a ongoing project right now.
That's what everybody tells us.
We are going to handle roles slightly differently there, but I think it would be a really great improvement if we had it at the time of the design.
Yeah.
It would make a lot of things easier.
I think it's sort of like, I was talking to a few people about this, and I said, hey, like, this is what I'm going to build. And this is why, because we got a customer who's really into it, and so we've got I got all the back end pieces done. I need to build a front end for it, like a role manager for delegated admin. Essentially, that's kind of where we are now. And I remember I mentioned this in a meeting, and somebody said, "Well, 3 people have tried it in 2 years, so if you want to be number 4, go ahead." I was like, "Oh, that doesn't bode well." I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not sure if I should feel encouraged or if I should feel dumb, but it sounded like a challenge. I was like, well, why not? And I know we've got people that need it. So yeah, in fact, we're going to get back to that sometime in the next couple of weeks here on the show. So yeah, I'll send you the repo. You can take a look at it.
Awesome.
So, well, cool. Well, hey everybody, thanks for hanging out with us today. Thank you, Yan, as always, for an action-packed, super information-dense session. It was awesome. Be sure to follow Yan on Twitter. Be sure to send us your questions, issues, concerns, etc. We'll get all the links to Discord and everything out in the chat. But Discord is usually fairly busy, so come out and hang out with us out there. Get your questions answered, meet other people, make fun of us. That seems to be a common theme, which I'm not entirely sure why, but we catch a lot of abuse, and that's what's great. That's what makes it fun. So anyway, we'll be back on Friday of this week. And until then, drop us a note, join us in Discord. The link's up there at the top, aka.ms/45show Discord join, up at the top of the screen. And let's figure out who we're going to go and raid. Let's see who's out and about today.
Kyle Codes, the Visual Studio team is live as well.
I don't think it's pronounced Kyle. I feel bad. I don't want to say Kyle because I just don't feel like that's how you pronounce it.
I don't know. How many options do you have with a C and a H?
I'm just saying. Anyway, we're gonna head over. We'll be back on Friday, everybody. Thanks for hanging with us, and
thanks everyone.
See you later this week. Bye.